My father promised he would walk me down the aisle at exactly 2 o'clock, no matter what. I built my life around believing him. But when the organ music swelled and I turned toward the heavy oak doors, the vestibule was empty. No mother, no siblings, no father, just the dust motes dancing in the light, and the sudden, suffocating realization that the people who were supposed to love me the most had decided to let me walk alone. The light coming through the shearling curtains of the Hawthorne Harbor Inn was gray and stingy, the kind of dawn that does not announce itself with glory, but simply dissolves the night. I was already awake. I had been awake since 4 a.m, lying perfectly still in the center of the king-sized bed, my hands resting on my diaphragm. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8. It was a technique I had learned in college, during the weeks before finals when my chest would feel like it was being crushed by a hydraulic press. I counted the seconds in my head, shaping the numbers with deliberate care. 1, 2, 3, 4. Today was my wedding day. The sentence felt like it belonged to someone else, a shiny, polished thing that did not fit in my mouth. I sat up and looked at the garment bag hanging on the back of the closet door. It was white and long, looking spectral in the dim room. Inside was the dress I had bought alone because my mother had been busy with her garden club on the day of the appointment. I remembered standing on the pedestal in the bridal shop, looking at my reflection while the sales associate clipped the excess fabric at my waist. She had asked where my entourage was, and I had given her the smile I had perfected over 33 years. The smile that said everything was fine. The smile that said I was low maintenance. The smile that said I was easy to love. They are just busy. I had told her. They trust my judgment. I got out of bed and walked to the window. Below, the harbor was waking up. A lobster boat cut a white scar across the steel-gray water, and the seagulls were already circling the pylons, screaming for scraps. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. I need everything to go smoothly today. I whispered to the glass. I was not asking for magic. I was asking for order. My entire life had been an exercise in managing the volatile temperature of the Clark family. I was the thermostat. If my father was angry, I was quiet. If my mother was frantic, I was capable. If my brother and sister were acting out, I was invisible. I had earned my place in the family by being the one thing they never had to worry about. But today was supposed to be different. Today, for the first time, I was the one standing in the center of the room. A soft knock at the door broke the silence. I turned, tightening the sash of my silk robe. "Come in," I called out. The door opened and Ethan slipped inside, bringing the smell of roasting coffee and rain with him. He was holding a cardboard tray with 2 cups, his hair slightly damp from the mist outside. When he saw me, his shoulders dropped an inch, the tension leaving his frame. "Good morning, Mrs. Mercer-to-be," he said. He set the coffee on the small round table by the window and crossed the room to me. Ethan Mercer was 35 years old. With the kind of steady, weathered kindness that you usually only find in people who have lived much harder lives. He worked in logistics, which fit him perfectly. He knew how to get things from point A to point B without drama. He knew how to hold a broken thing without making it worse. He wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time that morning, the counting in my head stopped. "How did you sleep?" he asked into my hair. "Like a rock." I lied. It was a reflexive lie, the kind I told to keep the waters smooth. He pulled back and looked at me. His eyes were brown and serious. "Zoe," he said. "Okay," I admitted. "I slept like a bride, which means I stared at the ceiling and worried about the weather." He smiled, a slow, easy expression that made the knot in my stomach loosen. "The weather is clearing up," he said. "The forecast says the sun will break through by noon. And even if it rains, we have the glass house. It will sound like music on the roof." He handed me a coffee cup. It was exactly how I liked it. Light and sweet. I took a sip and felt the warmth travel down my throat. "Are you nervous?" he asked. "About marrying you?" "No, never. I meant that. Marrying Ethan was the easiest decision I had ever made. It was the rest of it that made my hands tremble. the production, the eyes, the family. I looked at the clock on the bedside table. It was 7 in the morning. My dad promised he would be here by 2. I said. Ethan nodded. He knew the weight of that sentence. He knew that Graham Clark was a man who viewed time as a suggestion, except when it came to his own schedule. He told me specifically. I continued, needing to say it out loud to make it true. When we talked last week, he said, Zoe, I will be there at 2 in the afternoon to walk you down the aisle. No matter what. He used those exact words, no matter what. Then he will be there. Ethan said, he knows how much this means to you. I nodded, drinking more coffee. Of course he would be there. He was my father. He had paid for the deposit on the venue. He had sent the check for the catering. He was a difficult man, a demanding man. But he was not a monster. He would not miss his oldest daughter's wedding. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. I had sent a message to the family group chat the night before, a simple text just checking in. Can't wait to see everyone tomorrow. Drive safe. Love you. I unlocked the screen and opened the messaging app. The message sat there, blue and lonely at the bottom of the screen. Underneath it, there were no read receipts, no small bubbles indicating someone was typing. No thumbs-up reactions. It had been sent at 9 in the evening. It was now 7 in the morning. My mother, who checked her phone incessantly for notifications from her gardening forum, had not seen it. My father, who lived with his phone glued to his palm for business deals, had not seen it. Caleb, my older brother who was addicted to sports updates, had not seen it. Maya, my younger sister who practically lived on social media, had not seen it. Even Aunt Darlene, who usually responded to everything with a string of heart emojis, had not opened it. It was as if they had all synchronized their devices to ignore me, or as if they had all dropped off the face of the earth at the exact same moment. Maybe the cell service is bad at the house, I said, my voice sounding thin. Ethan looked at the screen over my shoulder. Maybe, he said, or maybe they are just traveling. You know how chaotic it gets when they are all trying to get out the door. Right. I said, Mom is probably trying to find her earrings and Dad is yelling about the car being packed wrong. They probably haven't even looked at their phones. I put the phone down, face down, so I wouldn't have to look at the blank space where their reassurance should have been. The Seabrook Glass House was a stunning venue, a cathedral of steel and glass perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic. It was designed to let the outside in, to make you feel like you were standing on the edge of the world. When we arrived at 10 o'clock for the setup and final walkthrough, the space was filled with the industrious noise of florists and caterers. The air smelled of white roses and salt water. I walked through the rows of white Chiavari chairs, counting them, 120. Perfect. The venue coordinator, a brisk woman named Sarah with a headset permanently attached to her ear, hurried over to me with a clipboard. Zoe, you look radiant, she said, though I was currently wearing jeans and a button-down shirt. Quick question about the seating chart. She tapped the clipboard with a pen. I have the Clark family table set for 9 people right up front, closest to the altar. Parents, siblings, aunt, and the 2 cousins. Is that still correct? Yes, I said. Of course. Great, she said. I just wanted to check because I haven't seen anyone from that party for the rehearsal or the drop-off. Usually, the mother of the bride is in here rearranging the centerpieces by now. I felt a flush of heat climb up my neck. I forced a laugh. A sharp, brittle sound that echoed too loudly in the glass room. Oh, you know my family, I said. They run on their own time zone. They are probably running late. They had a long drive from Massachusetts. Sarah looked at me for a beat longer than was comfortable. Her eyes were sympathetic, which was worse than if she had been annoyed. Okay, she said. We will keep the table set for 9. If anything changes, just let me know. Nothing will change, I said firmly. They will be here. I walked away from her, my heart hammering against my ribs. I pulled my phone out of my pocket again. Still nothing. The group chat remained a tomb. I went to the bridal suite, a private room tucked away at the back of the venue. It was a beautiful room, filled with mirrors and soft lighting, designed to make a woman feel like a princess. I sat in the makeup chair and stared at myself. My eyes looked wide and frightened. "Get it together. Zoe," I whispered. "Do not make a scene." The hair and makeup team arrived, a duo of cheerful women who unpacked an arsenal of brushes and sprays. They chatted about the weather and the lighting, filling the silence that I was too afraid to acknowledge. As the makeup artist was applying primer to my eyelids, there was a knock at the door. One of the catering staff poked his head in. "Delivery for the bride," he said. He held out a white envelope. It was a standard business envelope, the kind you buy in bulk at an office supply store. My heart leaped. It was from them. It had to be. A card explaining that they were stuck in traffic, or a sentimental note from my dad saying he couldn't wait to see me. "Thank you," I said. Taking it, the caterer left. I looked at the envelope. There was no return address. My name, Zoe Clark, was written in the center in careful, black block letters. The handwriting was not familiar. It didn't look like my mother's looping script or my father's jagged scrawl. It looked mechanical. I opened the flap. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, folded in thirds. I unfolded it. It was a printout of a screenshot. It was an image of the timeline page from my own wedding website. Circled in thick red ink was the line, "Family processional begins, 1:55 p.m. Underneath the image, typed in the same heavy font, was a single sentence. "Don't let them turn this into a show." I stared at the paper. The words swam before my eyes. Don't let them turn this into a show. Who was them? My family? The guests? The staff? And who had sent this? It felt hostile. It felt like a warning. I grabbed my phone. I couldn't wait anymore. I dialed my mother's number. It rang once, then clicked. "Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system." It hadn't rung through. It had been sent straight to voicemail, the way it does when a phone is turned off or set to do not disturb. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "It is Zoe. Please call me. I am at the venue. I am getting worried. Please." I hung up and immediately dialed my father. The line was silent for a second, and then a robotic female voice spoke. "We are sorry. The line you are trying to reach has been temporarily restricted. Please try your call again later." Restricted? I pulled the phone away and stared at it. Restricted didn't mean no signal. Restricted meant the service had been cut off, or the number had been changed, or blocked. My father was a wealthy man. He did not have his phone service cut off for non-payment. I tried Caleb. Voicemail. I tried Maya. Voicemail. I tried Aunt Darlene. Voicemail. The silence in the room was suddenly deafening, drowning out the soft pop music playing from the makeup artist's speaker. "Is everything okay, sweetie?" the hairstylist asked, pausing with a curling iron in her hand. I looked up at her in the mirror. My face was pale, the primer making me look ghostly. "Yes," I said. I forced the word out. "They are just having phone trouble." "It's fine." I crumpled the note and shoved it deep into my purse, buried under lipstick and tissues. I couldn't let anyone see it. If I showed it to someone, it would become real. It would become a problem. And I was the girl who didn't have problems. By 1:00, the guests began to arrive. I could see them from the window of the bridal suite. Cars were pulling into the gravel lot, gleaming in the overcast light. I recognized them. My college roommates, my coworkers, neighbors from the apartment complex where Ethan and I lived. And then, Marina Holt's car pulled in. Marina was my mentor at the publishing house where I worked as a junior editor. She was 60, fierce, and maternal in a way my own mother never was. She stepped out of her car wearing a sharp navy suit, looking like she was ready to negotiate a treaty. She came straight to the bridal suite. "Zoe," she said, sweeping into the room, "you look beautiful." I was in my dress now. The lace fit perfectly, hugging my ribs, but I felt like I was wearing a costume. "Thank you." "Marina," I said. She came closer and took my hands. Her grip was warm and firm. She looked at me, really looked at me, with eyes that didn't miss anything. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. It wasn't a casual question. It was an invitation to crumble. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to say, "My family is missing. My father's phone is restricted. Someone sent me a creepy note." But I couldn't. If I said it, the day would shatter. "They are just driving in." I said, "Traffic on the interstate is terrible. You know how it is." Marina studied my face. She knew I was lying. I could see it in the slight tightening of her mouth. But she respected my choice to lie. "Okay," she said, "just breathe." Ethan came in a moment later. He was dressed in his tuxedo, looking handsome and terrified. "Hey," he said, "can you help me with this?" He held up a white rose boutonniere. His hands were shaking slightly. "Of course," I said. I walked over to him and took the pin. I concentrated on the lapel of his jacket. The fabric was smooth wool. I pushed the pin through the stem, careful not to prick his skin. My own hands were trembling so badly that it took me 3 tries to get it right. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. His brow furrowed. "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated. He looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone. He slid it back into his pocket quickly. "Nothing," he said. "Just spam." But I had seen the look on his face. It wasn't spam. It was confusion. "Show me," I said. "Zoe, it's nothing." "Ethan," he sighed and pulled the phone back out. He held it up so I could see. It was a text from an unknown number. No area code that I recognized. The message was 3 words. "Check the license." I stared at it. "What does that mean?" I asked. "I don't know," Ethan said. "Probably just a wrong number, or some kid messing around." "Check the license," I repeated. "The marriage license?" Ethan shook his head. "I have it right here." He patted his inner pocket. "It is signed and ready. Then what license?" "I don't know." "Zoe, ignore it. Focus on us." He put his hands on my shoulders and squeezed. "We are getting married," he said. "That is the only thing that matters." I nodded, but the cold feeling in my stomach was spreading. 1:45. The guests were seated. I could hear the murmur of voices through the door. The string quartet began to play. 1:50. The family table was empty. 1:55. This was the time circled on the note. Family processional begins. I stood by the door, clutching my bouquet of white hydrangeas so hard the stems were snapping. I waited for the door to open. I waited for my father to rush in, breathless, apologizing, fixing his tie. The door remained closed. Reverend Lyle Bennett, our officiant, approached me. He was a kind man with white hair and a soft voice. "Zoe," he said gently, "it is 2:00. I looked at him. I couldn't speak. "Your family," he said. "They are not here yet." "They are coming," I whispered. "They have to be." "We can wait," he said. "Let's give them 15 minutes. Traffic can be unpredictable." 15 minutes, I said. "Yes, thank you." I went back into the suite and sat on the velvet sofa. I stared at the clock on the wall. The second hand swept around the face, relentless and cruel. 2:15, still nothing. Bennett came back. "Zoe," he said, his voice lower this time. Still no sign. "Should we give them another 5? 20 minutes, I said. "Just 20 minutes. I paced the small room. My dress rustled. A sound like dry leaves. I imagined the guests out there, 120 people sitting in rows, checking their watches, whispering to each other. Where are they? Why is nothing happening? Is she being left at the altar? No, not left by the groom. Left by everyone else. 2:30? The humiliation was a physical thing now. It felt like sunburn. It pricked my skin. I could feel their pity seeping through the walls. Bennett returned. He looked pained. "Zoe," he said, "we have been waiting 30 minutes. People are starting to get restless. The quartet has looped their playlist twice." I stopped pacing. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror. A memory hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was 12 years old. I was sitting on the front porch of our house in Riverton, wearing a black velvet dress and patent leather shoes. I was holding my violin case. It was the night of the spring recital. I had a solo. My father had promised to pick me up at 6. "Be on the porch," he had said. "I will swing by and grab you. I won't miss it." I sat on the wooden steps as the sun went down. I watched every car that passed, my heart jumping each time headlights swept across the lawn. 6 o'clock came and went. 6:30, 7. The recital started at 7. At 7:15, my mother's car pulled into the driveway. She got out, looking harried, carrying grocery bags. "What are you doing out here?" she asked. "Dad was supposed to take me to the recital." I said. She stopped. Her face softened, then hardened into a look of resignation. "Oh, Zoe," she said. "He got caught up at the office. You know how he is. Why didn't you call me?" "I didn't want to bother you," I said. She sighed and unlocked the front door. "Well, it is too late now," she said. "Come inside. It's getting cold." I had stood up, my legs stiff. I had picked up my violin case, and I had looked at my mother and smiled. "It's fine," I had said. I didn't want to go anyway. I had learned that day that if I pretended I didn't care, it didn't count as a rejection. If I said it was fine, then I wasn't a victim. I was just flexible. I looked at the 33-year-old woman in the mirror. She was still that 12-year-old girl, waiting on the porch for a car that wasn't coming. "Zoe?" Reverend Bennett asked. I took a deep breath. The air shuddered in my lungs. I turned to him. "Start the music," I said. He blinked. "But your father is not coming," I said. My voice was flat, dead calm. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I am sure." I walked to the door. I smoothed the front of my dress. I checked my reflection one last time. I was about to walk down the aisle alone in front of everyone I knew. I was about to confirm their suspicions. I was about to become the girl whose family didn't show up, but I would not let them see me cry. "Let's go," I said. I placed my hand on the doorknob. It was cold metal under my palm. I turned it. The double doors of the Seabrook glass house were heavy, made of wrought iron and tempered glass, designed to withstand the coastal winds of Maine. When the coordinator pushed them open, they made a sound like a deep intake of breath. The music swelled. It was Pachelbel's Canon in D, played by a string quartet. It was the most cliché wedding song in the world, but I had chosen it because it felt traditional. It felt like the kind of song a girl with a normal family would choose. I stepped into the threshold. The room was bathed in the milky, diffused light of the overcast afternoon. 120 faces turned toward me. I saw the collective intake of breath, the widening of eyes, and then the sudden, jagged confusion. They were looking for my father. They were looking for the silver-haired patriarch, Graham Clark. To be standing at my elbow, guiding me, giving me away. They were looking for the visual confirmation that I was a daughter worth claiming. Instead, they saw only me. The aisle stretched out before me, a long ribbon of white runner over the dark slate floor. To my left, the front row, the seats reserved for the bride's family, sat empty. 9 chairs, 9 white sashes, 9 vacuums where people should have been. The silence that followed the initial rustle of the guests was not peaceful. It was heavy. It was the sound of a room full of people realizing something was terribly wrong. I could feel their questions hitting me like physical objects. Where is he? Is she fighting with them? Is he sick? Is she alone? I took the first step. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. They were wooden, mechanical. I fixed my eyes on the altar, on the wall of glass behind it, refusing to look at the guests. If I looked at them, if I made eye contact with my college roommate or my boss or my neighbor, I would shatter. I would collapse right there on the runner, and I would not get up. So I looked at nothing. I looked at the gray horizon line where the ocean met the sky. Step, step, step. The walk felt endless. It felt like I was walking across a desert. The music seemed to stretch and warp, becoming mocking. "Here comes the bride," it seemed to say, all by herself, about halfway down the aisle. The murmuring started. It was a low buzz, a wave of whispered speculation. I saw heads leaning together. I saw hands covering mouths. I was not a bride anymore. I was a spectacle. I was a tragedy happening in real time. And then, movement. At the end of the aisle, Ethan moved. He was not supposed to move. The rehearsal instructions were clear. The groom stands at the altar, hands clasped, waiting for the father to hand off the bride. It was a transaction, a transfer of custody. But Ethan broke the blocking. He stepped down from the raised platform. He walked past his best man, past the groomsmen, and started walking up the aisle toward me. The murmuring stopped. The room held its breath. He met me in the center of the room, right between the rows of staring guests. He didn't say anything. He just reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm. His grip was solid. It was the only real thing in the entire world. He looked at me, and his eyes were fierce. He tucked my hand into the crook of his arm, effectively stepping into the role my father had vacated. I squeezed his arm so hard, I felt the wool of his tuxedo jacket bite into my fingers. "Thank you," I whispered. My voice was a broken rasp. He nodded, just once, and turned us toward the altar. The gesture saved me. It gave me a shred of dignity to cling to, but as we walked the rest of the way together, I felt a different kind of pain settle in my chest. By coming to get me, Ethan had confirmed to everyone in the room that this was not a mistake, this was not a traffic delay, this was a rescue mission. We reached the altar. Reverend Bennett looked at us with profound sadness in his eyes. He skipped the part of the ceremony where he asks, "Who gives this woman?" He just opened his book and began. "Dearly beloved," he said. I stood there, holding Ethan's hands, and I tried to listen. I tried to focus on the words about love and commitment and eternity. But my mind was a chaotic static. I kept thinking about the phones, my mother's phone, do not disturb, my father's phone, restricted. It wasn't that they were late. You are late when you get a flat tire. You are late when you oversleep, when you restrict your phone line, when you ignore a group chat for 12 hours, when you leave 9 chairs empty in the front row of your daughter's wedding. That is not lateness. That is architecture. They had built this silence. They had constructed this humiliation brick by brick. Why? The question looped in my brain. Why? What did I do? I replayed the last conversation I had with my father. It was 3 days ago. He had called to ask about the menu. He had sounded normal. He had sounded like himself. "Make sure the steak isn't overcooked." "Zoe," he had said. "People remember a bad steak." Was that a clue? Was there anger hidden in the talk about beef tenderloin? I glanced at the empty seats again. They looked like missing teeth in a smile. "Zoe?" Reverend Bennett's voice broke through the fog. He was looking at me expectantly. I realized he had asked me a question. "The vows. Zoe, take you. Ethan." I said, my voice sounded small, like a child's voice. "To be my wedded husband." I gripped Ethan's hands. I clung to him. He was the raft. Everything else was the ocean. The recessional was a blur of forced smiles and hasty exits. We walked back up the aisle. And this time, the guests clapped, but the applause felt tentative, polite. It was the kind of applause you give at a funeral when someone finishes a difficult eulogy. We exited the glass house and went straight into the photography session. The photographer, a high-energy man named Leo who wore a fedora, tried to keep the mood light. "Okay," he shouted. "Let's get the bridal party." Big smiles. "Look like you just won the lottery." We posed. We smiled. My cheeks began to ache. It was a sharp, muscular pain in my jaw from holding the expression for too long. "Okay," Leo said, checking his list. "Now, let's do the immediate family. Parents of the bride, siblings." He trailed off. He looked up from his clipboard. Scanning the group, he saw Ethan's parents, who looked uncomfortable and sad. He saw the groomsmen. He saw the bridesmaids. He did not see the Clarks. There was a terrible, stretching silence. Leo cleared his throat. "Ah, right," he said. "Okay, let's just skip to the couple portraits. Just Zoe and Ethan. Over by the cliffs, I felt tears pricking the backs of my eyes. Hot, stinging tears. No, I said. Zoe? Ethan asked softly. I am done, I said. No more pictures. But the light is perfect, Leo said. I said I am done. I turned and walked away. I walked fast, gathering my skirts in my hands. I walked past the cocktail hour, where guests were holding champagne flutes and whispering. I walked past the reception tent. I walked into the main building of the inn and found a door marked Staff Only. I pushed through it. It was a service corridor, smelling of bleach and linen. I found a single-stall restroom and locked the door behind me. The moment the lock clicked, my body gave up. I sank to my knees in front of the toilet. The nausea that had been simmering all morning boiled over. I retched, my stomach contracting violently. Bringing up nothing but bile and the coffee I had forced down hours ago, I heaved until my ribs ached, until I was gasping for air, sweating in the expensive lace dress. When it was over, I flushed the toilet and sat back on the cold tile floor. I didn't care that the floor was dirty. I didn't care that my dress was a $3,000 garment that was now pooling around a trash can. I pulled my knees to my chest and wrapped my arms around them. I rocked back and forth. A small, rhythmic motion. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. It didn't work. The numbers were just noise. I felt like I was disappearing. I felt like the Zoe Clark who existed yesterday, the competent editor, the organized bride, the good daughter, had dissolved. I was just a void in a white dress. There was a soft knock on the door. Zoe? It was Marina. Go away. I croaked. Please, I am not going away, she said. Her voice was calm, authoritative. I am sitting right here. I heard the rustle of fabric. She was sitting on the floor on the other side of the door. Marina Holt. The executive editor, who wore Armani suits and terrified interns, was sitting on a hallway floor next to a staff bathroom. I rested my forehead on my knees. I can't come out. I said, I can't look at them. You don't have to look at them, Marina said. You just have to breathe. I can't breathe. Yes, you can. It is autonomic. Your body does it whether you like it or not. I laughed. A wet, choking sound. Marina waited a beat. Then she spoke again. I am going to make you a deal. Zoe, if you tell me one true sentence, I will believe it. No spin. No PR. Just one true thing. I closed my eyes. I thought about the restricted phone line. I thought about the note. Don't let them turn this into a show. I thought about the empty chairs. I lifted my head. I feel like I did something wrong. I whispered, and I do not even know what it is. The silence on the other side of the door was heavy. That is the true sentence, Marina said softly. Yes, I said. I feel like I'm being punished. You are being punished, Marina said. But that does not mean you did something wrong. It means someone wants you to hurt. The words hung in the air. Someone wants you to hurt. It was a terrifying thought. It implied intent. It implied malice. My father was difficult, controlling, rigid, but did he want me to hurt? I stood up. My legs were shaky, but they held. I walked to the sink and splashed cold water on my face. I looked in the mirror. My mascara was not running. I had bought the waterproof kind. Thank God. But my eyes were red and hollow. I unlocked the door. Marina was standing there. She brushed off her skirt and looked at me. She didn't offer me a hug. She knew I would shatter if she touched me. Fix your face, she said. You are a professional. I nodded. I found Ethan in the bridal suite. He was pacing, his tie undone, looking like he was ready to punch a wall. When he saw me, he rushed over. Are you okay? He asked. Marina said you needed a minute. I needed to throw up. I said flatly, I am better now. He looked at me, searching my face for cracks. Zoe, he said, we can leave. We can just walk out the back door, get in the car, and drive home. We don't have to go to the reception. We don't have to cut the cake. And let them win? I asked. The question surprised me. I hadn't known I felt that way until I said it. Let who win? Ethan asked. Whoever did this? I said, If we leave, it becomes a tragedy. If we stay, it is just awkward. I can do awkward. I have been doing awkward my whole life. Ethan sighed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Look, he said, I need to show you this again. He brought up the message. The unknown number. Check the license. I stared at the blocky text. I told you. I said, the marriage license is fine. We signed it. Ethan nodded. I know. But I got paranoid. So I called the Cumberland County Clerk's office about 20 minutes ago. I have a friend who works in records there. I asked him to double-check the filing. And it is there. Ethan said, filed yesterday at 4 p.m. Perfectly legal. Everything is in order. So what does it mean? I asked. Check the license. Driver's license? Ethan shook his head. I do not know. But whoever sent this, they are not talking about our marriage license. There was a knock at the door. It was Tessa, my maid of honor. She looked frazzled, holding 2 glasses of white wine. Okay, she said, breathless. I have wine. I have Advil. And I have weird news. Weird news? I asked. Tessa handed me a glass. So, I was talking to one of the valet guys. She said, just chatting while I was having a cigarette, and he mentioned something strange. He said a guy was here earlier, like, way earlier, around 10 a.m. Who? Ethan asked. Guy in a gray suit? Tessa said. The valet said he didn't look like a guest. He looked corporate. He pulled up to the front, flashed some kind of ID badge, and asked to speak to the coordinator. What did he want? I asked. He asked for verification of the bride's family arrival. Tessa said. He wanted to know if the Clarks had checked in yet. My stomach twisted. And the coordinator told him no. Obviously, Tessa said, and then the guy just got back in his car and left. He didn't leave a card, didn't leave a name. Verification of arrival. It sounded like a delivery confirmation or a surveillance check. Did the valet see the car? Ethan asked. Just a sedan. Tessa said, black or dark blue, nothing special. Ethan looked at me. His jaw was set tight. Someone was checking to make sure they weren't here, he said, or making sure they were. I said, no, Ethan said. If they wanted to be here, they would be here. This feels managed. Managed. That was the word. We went to the reception. We did the grand entrance. The DJ announced, Mr. and Mrs. Ethan Mercer, and the room cheered. It was a loud, overcompensating cheer. Everyone was trying so hard to be supportive that it felt like a pity party. We sat at the sweetheart table. We ate salad that tasted like cardboard. I needed to move. I needed to do something with my hands. I am going to check the gift table. I said to Ethan, I will come with you. He said, no, I said, stay here. Eat your steak. I will be right back. I walked over to the gift table in the corner of the tent. It was piled high with boxes wrapped in silver and white paper. Cards were stacked in a wire basket. I began to sift through the boxes, looking for, I didn't know what, a clue, a sign, and then I saw it. It was a large box, wrapped in heavy, expensive gold paper. It sat right in the center of the table. Commanding attention, I looked at the tag. To Zoe and Ethan, it read, Love, Mom, Dad. I stared at the handwriting. It was my mother's script. Loopy, chaotic, familiar. I touched the box. It was heavy. They had sent a gift. They had mailed it, or had it delivered, in advance. The contradiction hit me like a slap. If you are angry enough to boycott your daughter's wedding, you do not send a wrapped KitchenAid mixer or crystal vase. You do not sign the card, Love, Mom, Dad. If you are estranged, you are estranged. But this was performative. This was wanting the credit for the generosity while inflicting the punishment of the absence. They wanted everyone to see the big gold box. They wanted people to say, look, her parents sent a lovely gift. They must just be sick. They are good parents. It was gaslighting in the form of gift wrap. My phone buzzed in the hidden pocket of my dress. I pulled it out. It was a video call request. Maya, my younger sister. I gasped. I looked around. The music was loud. Some top 40 hit. I couldn't answer here. I ran out of the tent. Clutching the phone, I ran toward the shoreline, where the noise of the ocean drowned out the DJ. I accepted the call. Maya's face filled the screen. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and swollen, her mascara smeared in jagged lines down her cheeks. She was in a small room with tile walls, a bathroom. I could hear the hum of a fan. "Zoe?" she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "Maya!" I yelled. "Where are you? Where is everyone? What is happening?" "I am sorry," she sobbed. "I am so sorry." "Zoe, Maya, tell me where you are. Is Mom okay? Is Dad okay?" "They are fine," she said, choking on the words. "We are all fine, physically. Then why aren't you here?" I demanded. "Why did you leave me alone?" "I couldn't come," she whispered. "He wouldn't let us." "Who? Dad?" Maya nodded frantically. She kept looking off camera, toward the door of the bathroom she was hiding in. She looked terrified. "He took the keys," she said. "He took our phones last night. I am using an old iPad I found in my bag. I am hiding in the powder room." "Took your phones?" I repeated. "Maya, you are 26 years old. Caleb is 30. What do you mean he took your phones?" "He said it was a blackout." She said, "He said we had to go dark. He said—" She stopped. She squeezed her eyes shut. "He said what?" "Maya? He said if I show up, if any of us show up, he will do it." "Do what?" "He will release it." "Zoe. He said he will ruin me. He has the photos. He has the messages." My blood ran cold. "What photos?" "I don't know," she wailed, her voice rising in panic. "Everything. He knows everything." "Maya, listen to me." "Zoe, you have to understand," she said, leaning closer to the screen, her eyes wide and desperate. "It is not just me. He has stuff on Caleb, too. And Mom. He sat us down last night and he laid it all out on the table, like files. Literal files. Zoe, files? He has been keeping them," she whispered. "For years." The signal faltered, the video pixelated. "Maya." I said, "Maya, stay with me. Dad said if I show up, he will—" The audio cut out. "Maya?" Her lips moved, but no sound came. She looked at the door behind her. Her expression shifted from fear to absolute terror. She scrambled to end the call. The screen went black. I stood there on the edge of the cliff, the cold ocean wind whipping my hair across my face. I stared at my reflection in the dark glass of the phone. Files. He's been keeping them for years. This was not a family emergency. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not even a simple boycott. This was a hostage situation. And my father was the captor. The wind off the Atlantic had teeth. It bit through the thin lace of my sleeves, raising goose flesh on my arms. But I did not go back inside for my wrap. I needed the cold. I needed the sharp, physical reminder that I was still here, standing upright. Even though the foundation of my life had just been pulled out from under me, Ethan and I had slipped away from the reception at 7 o'clock. We didn't make a speech. We didn't toss the bouquet. We just whispered to the coordinator that we were exhausted, and then we walked out the side door, past the catering vans and the smoking staff, down to the rocky beach below the inn. Behind us, the tent was glowing like a paper lantern against the darkening sky. I could hear the bass of the music thumping in the ground, a rhythmic heartbeat that felt entirely separate from us. The guests were still dancing. They were eating the wedding cake. They were drinking the open bar dry. They were confused, certainly. I had seen the huddled conversations, the sympathetic glances, but they were also relieved. The drama was over. The bride and groom were gone. Now they could just enjoy the party without having to perform sadness for me. We walked along the waterline, our shoes crunching on the wet stones. Ethan held my hand, his grip loose but constant. He had taken off his tuxedo jacket and draped it over my shoulders. So he was walking in his shirt sleeves, the wind whipping his tie over his shoulder. "Zoe," he said, We do not have to figure this out tonight. I looked at the dark water. It was black and oily, slapping against the rocks with a wet, heavy sound. Yes, we do, I said. Maya said he has files. Ethan, she said he has been keeping them for years. Ethan kicked a stone into the water. She was scared. He said, people say crazy things when they are scared. She was terrified. I corrected. That was not drama. That was fear. She looked like she was waiting for a bomb to go off. I stopped walking and pulled my phone out of Ethan's jacket pocket. The screen was bright in the darkness. A small rectangle of artificial light. I have to try again, I said. I dialed my mother. The number you have reached has been temporarily restricted. I dialed my father. The number you have reached has been temporarily restricted. I dialed Caleb. Voicemail. I dialed Aunt Darlene. It rang. My heart jumped into my throat. It was a loud, clear trill. One ring, then it stopped. Not a voicemail click, but a hard disconnect. Someone had looked at the screen, seen my name, and hit the decline button. They are there, I whispered. Someone is there. I stared at the screen, willing it to light up again. A minute passed. 2 minutes. The wind howled around us. Then, a vibration. A text message appeared. From Aunt Darlene. Please don't do this here. Go home. We will talk. I read it out loud. Please don't do this here. Here? Ethan asked. Where is here? In the group chat? On the phone? It feels like she means monitored, I said, like she cannot talk freely. Go home. I read again. Not come to the house. Not call me later. Just go home. It felt like a dismissal. It felt like she was telling a child to stop making a scene in a grocery store. But under the scolding tone, there was something else. Urgency. We need to go back to the room. Ethan said, we need to get out of this wind before you freeze. The bridal suite felt different now. This morning, it had been a room full of promise and nervous energy. Now, it felt like a crime scene where the evidence had already been swept away. The empty coffee cups were gone. The makeup chair was empty. My garment bag hung on the door like a ghost. Ethan locked the door and slid the deadbolt home. He went to the minibar, opened a bottle of water, and handed it to me. Sit, he said. Drink. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my wedding dress. The train was dirty at the hem, stained with gray mud from our walk on the beach. I looked at the mud and felt a strange satisfaction. It was the only honest thing about the day. Ethan sat at the desk and opened his laptop. He was in problem-solving mode. It was his default state when things went wrong at the logistics firm, when a shipment was lost or a truck broke down. Ethan didn't panic. He got quiet. He gathered data. Give me the number, he said. Which one? The one that texted me. Check the license number. I recited it from memory. It had burned itself into my brain. Ethan typed it into a search bar. He was using a paid service, something he used for vetting new drivers or checking vendor legitimacy. He clicked enter. The screen refreshed. Prepaid, he said. No name attached. Carrier is a budget network that sells burner SIMs at convenience stores. Activated 2 days ago in Boston. Boston, I said. My parents live in Riverton. That is 2 hours from Boston. Anyone can buy a SIM in Boston, Ethan said. It doesn't mean the person is from there, but it means they didn't want to be found. This wasn't a wrong number. Zoe. This was a deliberate, anonymous communication. A private investigator? I asked. The words felt ridiculous in my mouth. We were regular people. We paid taxes. We watched streaming shows on Friday nights. We didn't have private investigators. Maybe, Ethan said. Or just someone hired to do a job. What job? To text the groom a riddle? Ethan rubbed his face with his hands. He looked exhausted. The lines around his eyes were deep. I don't know, he said. But think about it. The gray suit man at the venue asking about your family. The note about the processional. The text to me. It is all coordinated. Someone was watching the clock. Someone knew exactly when things were supposed to happen. I stood up and walked to the small desk where my purse was sitting. I needed to find a tissue. I felt like I was going to start crying again, and I didn't want to ruin the upholstery. I dug through the bag. Lipstick, breath mints, my phone. I tapped the screen to check the time. 8:30. There was a notification badge on my email app. One new message. I almost ignored it. It was probably a receipt from the venue or a congratulatory automated message from some registry. But the subject line caught my eye. It was flagged with a red exclamation point. Urgent. Beneficiary verification required. Action needed within 24 hours. The sender was Brightwell Trust Services. I froze. Brightwell. The name triggered a sensory memory. The smell of old paper. The sound of a ticking clock. The taste of peppermint candy. Brightwell was the firm my grandfather had used. My father used to mention them when I was little. I have to go into the city for a meeting at Brightwell, he would say, putting on his best tie. Family money is complicated. Zoe, you have to watch it like a hawk. I opened the email. Dear Ms. Clark, we have received a request to change the primary beneficiary details on trust account 884-22-L. As the named beneficiary, your identity verification is required before any modifications can be finalized. The request was flagged due to a discrepancy in the authorization signature. Please contact our fraud prevention department immediately. I read it twice. Trust account? I didn't have a trust account. Ethan, I said. My voice was high and thin. He turned in the chair. What is it? I walked the phone over to him. Look at this. He read the email. His eyebrows shot up. You have a trust? He asked. No. I said, not that I know of. My dad always said everything was tied up in the business. He said Grandpa's estate went to charity. Ethan looked at the email again. It says, as the named beneficiary. He said, that means it is yours. Or at least, it is for you. I took the phone back and hit the number listed in the email. It was an 800 number. It rang 3 times. Brightwell Trust Services. Fraud Prevention. This is Sarah speaking. Hi, I said. I am calling about an email I just received. My name is Zoe Clark. There was the sound of typing. One moment. Ms. Clark, can you verify your date of birth and the last 4 digits of your social security number? I gave them to her. My hand was shaking so hard the phone was vibrating against my ear. Thank you, Sarah said. I see the flag here. We received a faxed instruction this morning at 9 o'clock to change the payout structure and beneficiary designation on your trust. This morning? I asked. On my wedding day? Yes. Ma'am. The request came from the authorized family representative. Who is the representative? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mr. Graham Clark, Sarah said. I closed my eyes. Okay, I said. And what change did he try to make? I cannot disclose the specific details of the change until we verify your identity in person or via secure video link. Sarah said, but the signature on the authorization form did not match the specimen we have on file for you. That is why it was flagged. Wait, I said, the signature? For me? Yes, Sarah said. The document requires 2 signatures, the representatives and the beneficiaries. Mr. Clark submitted a document with both signatures. Our system flagged yours as a potential mismatch because I didn't sign anything. I said, I am in Maine. I got married today. I haven't signed a document in weeks. There was a pause on the line, a heavy professional silence. I see, Sarah said. Her tone shifted. It became sharper, more alert. Ms. Clark, I am going to place a temporary freeze on this account. No changes will be processed. I recommend you contact our legal department on Monday morning. Wait, I said, just tell me one thing. How long has this trust existed? Since 2010, Sarah said. I was 17. Thank you, I whispered. I hung up. I looked at Ethan. He was watching me with intense focus. He tried to change it this morning. I said, he tried to change the beneficiary, and he forged my signature. Forged it? Ethan asked. The woman said the signature didn't match. I wasn't there. Ethan, I was getting my hair done. I sat down on the bed. The room felt like it was tilting. Why? I asked. Why today? Because you got married today, Ethan said. His voice was grim. Marriage changes things legally. It changes next of kin. It changes financial status. Maybe the trust has a trigger. Maybe when you get married, the money is supposed to become yours. I shook my head. I don't know. I said, I never knew it existed. Think back. Zoe, Ethan said. He leaned forward. Did you ever sign anything? Anything at all? I racked my brain. 2010. I was a senior in high school. I remembered signing college applications. I remembered signing for my driver's license. No. I said, wait, I was 22. I had just graduated from college. I was home for the summer before starting my internship. My father had called me into his study. The room smelled of cedar and scotch. He had a stack of papers on his desk. Zoe, honey, he had said, I need you to sign some insurance stuff. Just routine updates for the family policy, boring administrative work. He had flipped the pages for me, pointing to the lines where I needed to sign. Sign here, and initial here. I had reached for the pages to read them. Just out of habit. I was a reader. I liked to know what I was looking at. He had sighed, a soft, heavy sigh through his nose. Zoe, he had said, using that tone, that gentle, disappointed tone that made me feel like I was 6 years old and had just spilled grape juice on the carpet. It is just standard liability coverage. Do you not trust me to handle the boring stuff? I am trying to save you the headache. I had frozen. The accusation of mistrust hung in the air. I didn't want him to think I was ungrateful. I didn't want to be difficult. So I signed. I signed my name 5 times. I didn't read a single word of the text above the signature lines. I signed papers. I said to Ethan, after college, he told me it was insurance. Ethan closed his laptop. He looked angry, not at me. But for me, it wasn't insurance. He said, it was control. He probably had you sign away your rights to the trust, or appoint him as the permanent trustee. I felt sick, physically sick. The man who had taught me to ride a bike, who had cut my steak for me until I was 10, who had driven me to every violin lesson. He had looked me in the eye and tricked me. Ethan stood up and walked over to me. He knelt on the floor in front of me, ignoring the mud on my dress. He took my hands. Zoe, he said, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest. Okay, does your dad ever punish people with silence? I looked at him. What do you mean? I mean, is this his move? Does he cut people off to make them fall in line? I thought about it. I thought about the time my brother Caleb decided to skip the annual family ski trip to go to a friend's wedding. My father hadn't yelled. He had just stopped talking to Caleb for 3 months. He hadn't answered his calls. He hadn't acknowledged his birthday. Eventually, Caleb had apologized, even though he hadn't done anything wrong, just to make the silence stop. I thought about my mother, how she would get quiet and small whenever she bought something my father thought was unnecessary. She would tiptoe around the house for days until he decided she had suffered enough. Yes, I said. He does. Ethan nodded. But he calls it boundaries. I added. I felt a defensive reflex kick in, a habit learned over decades. He says he is setting healthy boundaries. He says he is removing himself from negativity. Ethan squeezed my hands. Zoe, he said, that is not boundaries. That is shunning. Boundaries are for protection. Shunning is for manipulation. The truth of his words hit me hard. Shunning. It was an ugly word, biblical, cruel. My phone buzzed again. I jumped. It wasn't a call. It was a text message. From Tessa. Hey, I am still at the venue helping clean up some stuff. I saw that car again, the one the valet told me about. Below the text was a photo. It was grainy, taken in low light, but clear enough. It showed a dark blue sedan parked at the far edge of the Seabrook Glasshouse lot, half obscured by a hedge. The license plate was visible. Emma-44R-T-9L. I showed it to Ethan. The gray suit man. I said. Ethan stared at the photo, then his eyes widened. Check the license, he whispered. What? The text message. Zoe, check the license. We thought it meant the marriage license. But what if it meant the license plate? My mouth fell open. Check the license plate, I repeated. Ethan scrambled back to the desk. He opened his laptop again. His fingers flew across the keys. He was typing the plate number into the same search database he had used for the phone number. He hit enter. The processing wheel spun. 1 second, 2 seconds. It stopped. Vehicle registered to Ashford. Risk Compliance 100 Federal Street, Boston. M.A. Ashford, Risk Compliance. Ethan read out loud. He opened a new tab and searched for the company name. Their website was sleek. Dark blue and gray, the homepage featured stock photos of men in suits, shaking hands and vague terminology about asset protection and mitigation strategies. Ethan clicked on the About Us page. Ashford Risk Compliance provides high-level security, surveillance, and asset recovery services for high-net-worth individuals and corporate entities. Ethan turned the screen toward me. "They are not wedding guests," he said. "They are fixers." I stared at the screen. Asset recovery, surveillance. My father hired a risk management firm to watch my wedding. I said, "Not to protect you." Ethan said, "If they were here to protect you, they would be standing by the door with earpieces. They would have introduced themselves to the venue staff." "Then why?" I asked. "To make sure the plan worked," Ethan said. "To make sure your family stayed away, or maybe to make sure you didn't leave." "Didn't leave?" Ethan looked at me. "If you have a trust fund that he is trying to control, and he knows you are getting married, maybe he was worried you would run off with the money. Or maybe he wanted to make sure I didn't find out about it." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. He had me watched. I whispered, "On my wedding day, he paid strangers to sit in a car and watch me be humiliated." I thought about the note again. Don't let them turn this into a show. "Who sent the note?" I asked. "Was it the guy in the car?" "Maybe," Ethan said. "Or maybe the note came from someone else. Someone trying to warn you." "Like who?" Ethan didn't answer. He didn't know. I stood up and walked to the corner of the room where we had dumped the few gifts we had brought back from the venue. The gold box from my parents was sitting on top of the pile. It gleamed under the hotel lights. It looked festive. It looked generous. I reached out and touched the tag. Love, Mom, Dad. I ran my finger over the word love. It was a lie. A perfectly wrapped, expensive lie. "They didn't send this because they love me," I said. My voice was steady now. The shaking had stopped. Ethan watched me. "They sent this so that when people asked where they were, I would point to the gift and make excuses for them." I said, "They sent this so I would feel guilty for being angry." I looked at the tag one last time. "They wanted me to feel small today," I said. The words hung in the silence of the room. They wanted me to feel small, so I would stay small. So I wouldn't ask questions about trusts or signatures or where the money went. I looked at Ethan. "I am done being small," I said. Ethan stood up. "What do you want to do?" "I want to go home," I said. "Not to Riverton, to our home. I want to get out of this dress, and then I want to find a lawyer." Ethan nodded. "Okay," he said. "Let's pack." I looked at the gold box. "Leave it," I said. "Leave the gift?" "Leave it," I said. "I don't want anything from them. Not their money, not their gifts, and definitely not their love. If this is what it looks like." I turned my back on the gold box and walked toward the bathroom to take the pins out of my hair. I was ready to wash the hairspray out. I was ready to wash the whole day off my skin. Tomorrow. I would fight. Tonight. I just wanted to be Zoe Clark again. Or rather, Zoe Mercer. The name sounded like armor. I decided I liked it. The drive back to Riverton was silent. We had checked out of the Hawthorne Harbor Inn at 6 a.m, leaving the mud-stained wedding dress in the hotel trash can because I could not bear to put it back in the bag. I wore jeans and a sweatshirt I had bought from the gift shop. Ethan drove with both hands on the wheel, his eyes scanning the road as if he expected a black sedan to cut us off at any moment. We arrived at our apartment building just before noon. It was a brick walk-up on the edge of town, the kind of place that felt safe and anonymous. We hauled our bags up the 3 flights of stairs, the mundane physical effort grounding me. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. The apartment smelled of stale air and the lemons I had left in a bowl on the counter. It looked exactly as we had left it 3 days ago, frozen in time. The mail was piled on the side table. My running shoes were kicked off by the mat. I exhaled, dropping my keys into the ceramic bowl by the door. And then I stopped. There was a row of hooks above the bowl where we kept our spare keys, my car key, the laundry room key, and the spare apartment key, a heavy brass key on a leather fob that my father had given me when I moved in. "Keep this one here, Zoe," he had said, "for emergencies, if you get locked out, or if I need to get in to check the furnace while you are away." The hook was empty. I stared at the small brass hook. It looked naked against the white paint. "Ethan?" I asked. He was bringing the last bag in. "Yeah? Did you take the spare key? The one on the leather fob?" Ethan stopped. He looked at the hooks. "No," he said. "I have my set right here." I walked over to the hooks and touched the empty one. There was no dust on it. "It is gone," I said. "Maybe you put it in a drawer?" Ethan suggested. "Before we left?" I shook my head. "I never move it. It has been on that hook for 4 years. I felt a prickle of unease on the back of my neck. I walked through the apartment, checking the windows. They were locked. The fire escape window was secured with the bar. Nothing looked disturbed. The TV was still there. My laptop was on the desk. But the key was gone. It felt intimate. A burglar takes your jewelry. A stalker takes your key. I went back to the entry table and looked at the pile of mail. My neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, usually collected it for us when we were away. She must have dropped it off this morning before we arrived. Bills, flyers, a wedding card from a cousin who hadn't been invited, and a stiff, white envelope. It was a certified letter. The return address was embossed in black ink. Kendall and Rowe LLP, attorneys at law. I didn't know the name. I picked it up. It was addressed to Ms. Zoe Clark. Beneath my name, in parentheses, it read, Family Asset Documentation. My hands started to shake. I ripped the envelope open, ignoring the paper cut that sliced my thumb. I pulled out a single sheet of heavy cream-colored paper. "Dear Ms. Clark, please find enclosed a formal notification regarding the activation of the family governance protocols as outlined in the 2015 agreement. As of February 1st, all accounts held for your benefit under the Clark Family Trust have been placed under administrative review pending a compliance audit. You are hereby notified that any attempt to access, transfer, or liquidate assets associated with the linked accounts without the express written consent of the family representative will be considered a breach of contract. Sincerely, Jonathan Rowe." I read it twice. The words swam before my eyes. Governance protocols, compliance audit, breach of contract. Ethan took the paper from my hand. He read it quickly, his jaw tightening. He locked it down. Ethan said, "He didn't just stop the wedding. He locked down everything." I sat on the floor, right there in the hallway. "I don't have any accounts," I whispered. I kept saying it because I needed it to be true. I pay my own rent. I pay my own student loans. What accounts is he talking about? Ethan crouched down next to me. "We need a lawyer," he said. "Not tomorrow, today." Marina Holt met us at a coffee shop in downtown Boston at 2 o'clock. She was wearing sunglasses and a trench coat, looking like she was meeting a source for a political exposé. She didn't hug me. She just slid a cup of black coffee across the table. "Drink," she said. "You look like hell." "Thank you," I said. I showed her the letter. She put on a pair of reading glasses and scanned it. Her expression didn't change, but the air around her seemed to get colder. "Kendall and Rowe," she muttered. "Corporate sharks. They handle high-stakes divorces and estate battles. They are expensive and they are mean." She handed the letter back. "You need Elena Marwick," she said. "Who is that?" "She is the person I call when authors try to breach their contracts or when estates try to sue us for defamation," Marina said. "She is not warm. She is not fuzzy. She will not ask you about your feelings, but she will gut them if they step out of line." "Can we afford her?" Ethan asked. Marina looked at him. "I will pay the retainer," she said. "Consider it an early wedding gift, or a late one." "Marina," I started. Don't, she said, cutting me off. This isn't charity. I am investing in my employees' sanity. I need you back at your desk eventually, and you won't be any good to me if you are fighting a war on your own. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. Elena, she said into the phone. It is Marina. I have a situation. I am sending them to you now. Yes, it is the wedding girl. No, it is worse than we thought. She hung up. Go, she said. Her office is on State Street. She is waiting. The offices of the Marwick Legal Group were glass and chrome, overlooking the harbor. Elena Marwick was a small woman with razor-sharp gray hair and eyes that looked like they could cut glass. She did not offer us water. She did not offer condolences. She pointed to 2 leather chairs and sat behind her desk. Let me see the letter, she said. I handed it to her. She read it, then placed it flat on the desk. Okay, she said. Here's the first rule. Stop assuming they are acting emotionally. I blinked. But it is my father. I said, he is angry because I... Stop, Elena said. She held up a hand. Anger is an emotion. This is not anger. This is strategy. If you treat this like a family squabble, you will lose. You need to treat this like a hostile corporate takeover. Because that is what it is. She tapped the letter. This phrase here. Family governance protocols. This is not standard trust language. This is something wealthy families use to control the behavior of their heirs. It is usually buried in the fine print of a trust agreement. It ties access to money to specific behavioral milestones, staying sober, keeping a job, or, in some cases, marrying the right person. I felt a cold flush of shame. I signed something. I whispered. When I was 22, he said it was insurance. Elena nodded. It was likely a consent form for this governance structure. She said, you essentially signed away your autonomy in exchange for being a beneficiary of a trust you didn't even know existed. She turned to her computer. I am going to run a search, she said. I have access to a few databases that go deeper than the public records. She typed for a few minutes. The silence in the room was heavy. Ethan reached for my hand, but I kept my hands folded in my lap. I needed to be sharp. I needed to be ready. Here we go, Elena said. She turned the monitor so we could see. It was a list of financial filings. Zoe Clark, she said. Social Security number ending in 4492. Yes, I said. You are listed as the primary beneficiary of the Clark Generation Skipping Transfer Trust. Assets estimated in the mid-7 figures. 7 figures? I choked. Millions, Ethan said softly. But I have student loans. I said, I drive a 10-year-old Honda. I clip coupons. Because the trust is discretionary. Elena said, the trustee decides when and how you get the money. And the trustee is... Graham Clark. I finished. Correct. Elena scrolled down. But here is the interesting part. She said, there is a secondary filing. A tax document from 3 years ago. It lists a distribution. A distribution? Money taken out of the trust. Elena explained. $50,000. Paid to Ashford Risk and Compliance. My breath hitched. He paid the surveillance company with my money. I said, Elena looked at me. He used your trust fund to pay for the people spying on you, she said. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to close my eyes. It wasn't just theft. It was a violation so twisted I couldn't wrap my head around it. He had made me pay for my own cage. I felt violated. It wasn't physical. He hadn't hit me. But he had taken my name, my identity, my financial soul, and used it to build a wall around me. This is trespass. I said, yes, Elena said. It is, and it is actionable. She turned back to me. We are going to file a demand for accounting, she said. We are going to force him to show us every penny that has moved in and out of that trust for the last 10 years. And if we find fraud, which I suspect we will sue him for breach of fiduciary duty. She looked at Ethan. And you, she said, you are the husband. You are the new variable. Ethan sat up straighter. What do you mean? Elena leaned forward. Why did he stop the wedding? She asked. Specifically, why the nuclear option? I don't know, Ethan said. He never liked me, but he tolerated me. There is a reason, Elena said. There is a trigger. Something about this marriage threatened his control. Ethan went quiet. He looked down at his hands. Ethan? I asked. He took a deep breath. I didn't tell you this, he said to me, because I didn't want to stress you out before the big day. Tell me what? 2 days before the wedding, Ethan said. Thursday. Your dad called me. He called you? He asked me to meet him for a drink. Ethan said, just the two of us. He said he wanted to. Bless the marriage. Bless the marriage. I repeated. That doesn't sound like him. Exactly, Ethan said. It sounded weird. He said he had some papers he wanted me to look at, some things to clarify the future. And I told him no. Ethan said, I told him I was busy with the rehearsal dinner prep. I told him we could talk after the honeymoon. He looked at me, his eyes full of regret. I thought he was just trying to intimidate me. Ethan said, I thought he was going to give me the hurt her, and I will kill you speech. I didn't want to deal with it, so I blew him off. Elena tapped her pen on the desk. He wanted you to sign something, she said, probably a waiver or a non-disclosure agreement regarding the trust, and when I refused to meet him, Ethan said, he realized he couldn't control me, and that is when he pulled the plug. Elena said, he realized that once you were married, Zoe would have a partner who might ask questions, a partner he hadn't compromised yet. It felt like a chess move. I could see the board now. My father moving the pieces, the pawn to block the bishop, the castle to protect the king. He didn't care about my happiness, I said. He cared about his exposure. Elena stood up. Okay, she said. We have work to do. I am going to draft the demand letter today. But first, you need to protect yourselves physically. Physically? He has shown he is willing to cross boundaries. Elena said. He has a key to your apartment? The spare key. I said, it is missing. Change the locks, Elena commanded. Immediately, before you go to sleep tonight, and freeze your credit files, both of you. If he has your social security number, he can do a lot of damage. She handed me a card. This is a forensic accountant I work with. His name is Noah. We will need him later. For now, go home, lock your doors, and do not answer the phone. We drove to Riverton, not to our apartment, but to my parents' house. I needed to see it. I needed to know if they were hiding in there, watching television while my life burned down. The house was a large colonial on a quiet street lined with oak trees. It was the house I had grown up in, the house where I had learned to walk, to read, to hide my feelings. We pulled into the driveway. It was empty. My father's luxury sedan was gone. My mother's SUV was gone. The curtains were all drawn tight. The newspaper from Sunday was still in the plastic bag at the end of the driveway, soggy from the rain. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. I rang the bell. I could hear the chimes echoing inside. Ding dong. Silence. I rang it again, and again. I pounded on the wood with my fist until my knuckles hurt. Open the door, I screamed. It was a raw, ugly sound. Open the door and look at me. Nothing. The neighbor, Mrs. Gable, was in her garden next door. She was wearing a straw hat and holding a pair of shears. She stopped pruning her hydrangeas and looked at me. Zoe? She called out. I turned. I tried to compose my face, but I knew I looked deranged. Hi, Mrs. Gable, I said. Are you looking for your folks? She asked. She walked over to the low stone wall that separated our yards. Yes, I said. Do you know where they are? She frowned. They left yesterday morning. She said, early, before the sun was up. I was letting the dog out and I saw them packing the SUV. Packing? I asked. Like luggage? Like they were moving out. Mrs. Gable said, suitcases, boxes. Your dad was shouting at your mom to hurry up. It looked tense. Did they say where they were going? No. She said, they didn't see me. They just peeled out of the driveway and headed toward the highway. I thought maybe they were heading up to your wedding early. She looked at my jeans and sweatshirt. Was it a nice ceremony? She asked. I swallowed hard. It was unforgettable. I said, we were back in the car, driving toward the locksmith. When my phone rang, the screen lit up. Caleb, my brother. I stared at it. Answer it, Ethan said. Put it on speaker. I tapped the button. Caleb? I said. Zoe. His voice sounded flat, metallic, like he was reading from a script. Where are you? I asked. Where is everyone? We are safe, Caleb said. We are taking some time away. Time away? Caleb, you missed my wedding. You ghosted me. Dad told us you would understand, Caleb said. He said you were under a lot of stress and things got complicated. Complicated? I shouted. He restricted his phone line. He hired a surveillance team. That is not complicated. Caleb, that is insane. Stop, Caleb said. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Stop yelling. I went cold. Caleb had never spoken to me like that. He was the gentle one, the one who sneaked me candy when I was grounded. Caleb, I said softly, what is happening? Why are you talking like this? It is for your own good. Zoe, he said. The phrase triggered a memory. My father saying it when he took away my diary. My father saying it when he refused to let me go to art camp. It is for your own good. Did he tell you to say that? I asked. There was a pause. I could hear breathing on the other end. Just let it go. Zoe, Caleb said, don't fight him on this. Please, just go live your life with Ethan and leave the rest alone. I can't leave it alone. I said, he stole from me. Don't, Caleb hissed. Don't say that. He hears everything. He hears everything? He hung up. The line went dead. I looked at Ethan. He is terrified. I said, or he is complicit. Ethan said, the locksmith was a cheerful man named Mike who whistled while he worked. He drilled out the old lock on our apartment door and installed a heavy-duty deadbolt. That will hold back a battering ram, he said, handing me the new keys. They were shiny and silver. Thank you, I said, when he left. I locked the door. I threw the bolt. I put the chain on. Then I went to the window and closed the blinds. I felt like I was sealing myself into a bunker. I walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The adrenaline that had fueled me since the wedding was finally running out. I looked at the new keys in my hand. I have to lock my father out. I said to the empty room. Ethan came in. He sat next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. I started to cry. It wasn't the pretty, single-tear crying of the movies. It was ugly sobbing. It was the sound of a child realizing that the monsters aren't under the bed. They are in the kitchen making pancakes. He hates me. I sobbed into Ethan's shirt. He doesn't just want to control me. He hates me. He doesn't hate you, Ethan said, stroking my hair. He uses you. That is different. And in some ways, it is worse. I cried until my throat was raw. I cried for the wedding I didn't have. I cried for the brother who was too scared to talk to me. I cried for the 12-year-old girl on the porch who had learned to say, it's fine. It wasn't fine. It would never be fine again. Later that night, unable to sleep, I pulled a box down from the top shelf of the closet. It was a shoebox covered in faded wrapping paper, my memory box. I opened it. It smelled of dried lavender and old paper. Inside were the artifacts of my life. Ticket stubs from my first concert, a dried corsage from prom, photos of friends, and cards. I sifted through them until I found it. A birthday card from my 21st birthday. It was pink, with flowers on the front. I opened it. To my dearest Zoe, 21 years. You are becoming a woman now. The world is big and sometimes scary. But remember that you never have to face it alone. I will always be here to guide you. I will always know what's best for you. Love, Dad. I stared at the sentence. I will always know what's best for you. When I was 21, I had read those words and felt safe. I had felt loved. I had felt protected. Now, sitting in my fortified apartment with a lawyer on retainer and a husband who had been investigated by a risk management firm, the words looked different. They didn't look like a promise. They looked like a threat. I will always know what's best for you. Translation: you will never know what is best for yourself. Translation: I will never let you choose. I closed the card. I didn't tear it up. I put it back in the box. I was keeping the evidence. The conference room at Marwick Legal Group smelled of lemon polish and expensive coffee. It was a sterile, cold environment, which was fitting, because the news Elena Marwick slid across the mahogany table was cold enough to freeze the blood in my veins. It was Wednesday. 3 days since the wedding that wasn't. 3 days since I had locked my father out of my apartment and out of my life. We received the response from Brightwell Trust Services this morning. Elena said, her voice was level, devoid of the pity that everyone else seemed to be drowning me in lately. She tapped a thick stack of documents. Zoe, she said, you need to listen to me very carefully. The trust exists. It has existed since 2010. 2010. I repeated. I was 17. Elena nodded. It was established by the estate of Arthur Clark. Your grandfather. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. Grandpa Artie. He had been the only person in the family who laughed loud enough to shake the windows. He had died of a stroke right before my high school graduation. My father told me Grandpa died in debt. I said, he told me the estate was a mess, and that whatever was left went to the Red Cross. He said he had to pay for the funeral out of his own pocket. Elena opened the folder. That was a lie. She said, she turned the document around so I could read it. The Clark Generation Skipping Transfer Trust. Initial funding. $4,500,000. I stared at the number written out in black and white. 4 million. I had spent my 20s eating instant ramen. I had skipped dental appointments because I couldn't afford the copay. I had taken out $30,000 in student loans that I was still paying off. $50 at a time. He let me struggle. I whispered, he didn't just let you struggle, Elena said. He engineered it. She flipped the page to a section highlighted in yellow. Here's the mechanism, she said. This is the clause that kept you in the dark. I leaned in. The legal language was dense, but Elena translated it with surgical precision. The trust is structured to release control to the beneficiary, that is you, upon the occurrence of a triggering event. Elena explained, there are 2 triggers. One is age-based, which usually happens at 35. You are 33. And the other? Ethan asked. He was sitting next to me, his hand resting protectively on the back of my chair. The other trigger is marriage, Elena said. I froze. Upon the lawful marriage of the beneficiary, the trust assets shall transfer from the trusteeship of the family representative to the direct control of the beneficiary. I read the words 3 times. Marriage. I said, yes, Elena said, but there is a caveat. Look at the subclause. She pointed to a paragraph below the marriage trigger. However, should the family representative deem the marriage to be contrary to the long-term stability of the beneficiary, the transfer may be delayed pending a review period, or until the beneficiary meets a stability condition defined by the representative. A stability condition. I said, what does that mean? It means nothing, Elena said bluntly. It is a catch-all. It is vague language designed to give the trustee, your father, absolute veto power. He can define stability however he wants. He can say you are not stable because you have a parking ticket. He can say you are not stable because you married a man he doesn't like. She closed the folder. That is not normal. Zoe, she said, most trusts have age requirements or education requirements. This clause? This is control disguised as protection. It gives him the legal right to hold your inheritance hostage if he doesn't approve of your life choices. I sat back in the leather chair. The pieces of the puzzle were slamming together so fast it made me dizzy. The wedding, I said. Elena nodded. He didn't stop the wedding because he was emotional. She said, he didn't restrict his phone because he was being dramatic. He stopped the wedding because if you got married, you triggered the clause. You became the legal owner of $4.5 million, and he couldn't let that happen. Ethan said, no. Elena said, he couldn't. But why? I asked. Why does he care if I have the money? He is rich. He has his own money. Why deny me mine? Elena picked up a second document. This one was thinner, I did some digging into Ashford Risk and Compliance. She said, the firm your father paid with your trust money. The spies. I said, they are not just spies. Elena said, they are reputation managers. I found a pattern of payments going back 5 years. Every time you made a major life decision, Ashford got paid. When you moved in with Ethan, payment. When you got your promotion at work, payment. She looked at me. He has been paying them to build a file on you, Zoe, to document every mistake, every late bill, every argument you might have had in public. Why? I asked again. To prove you are unstable. Elena said. The room went silent. If you ever tried to claim the money, Elena continued, he would use the Ashford files to invoke the stability condition. He would go to a judge and say, look, she is irresponsible. She is volatile. I need to keep control of the money for her own good. My stomach turned over. The note. I whispered, don't let them turn this into a show. What? Elena asked. The note I got at the wedding. I said, it said, don't let them turn this into a show. Maybe he wasn't talking about the wedding. Ethan said slowly. Maybe he was talking about a court case. Don't let them turn this into a show. Meaning, don't fight me, or I will air all your dirty laundry. I looked at Ethan. He looked horrified. He wasn't protecting me. I said, he was building a case against me. We took a taxi back to our apartment because Ethan's car was blocked in by a delivery truck, and neither of us had the patience to wait. The apartment felt different now. The new deadbolt on the door gleamed. The blinds were still drawn. It felt less like a home and more like a safe house. I went into the kitchen and poured a glass of water. My hands were steady now. The shock had burned off, leaving a cold, hard anger in its place. Ethan was standing in the doorway, watching me. Zoe, he said. I didn't turn around. I stared at the water in the glass. What if you married into a trap? I asked. The question had been haunting me since the meeting. What do you mean? Ethan asked. I mean, look at this, I said. I turned to face him. My family is a horror show. My father is a sociopath who stole my inheritance and hired people to stalk me. My mother is an accomplice. My siblings are terrified. This is what you married. Ethan, you married a woman who comes with files and lawsuits and $4 million of radioactive money. Ethan walked over to the counter. He took the glass from my hand and set it down. I didn't marry a trust fund, he said, and I didn't marry a victim. You married a target. I said, then we are both targets, he said. He took my face in his hands. Listen to me, he said. We can walk away. We can tell Elena to drop it. We can let him keep the money. We can move to California and change our names and never speak to them again. I looked into his eyes. I saw the offer there. It was real. He would do it. He would leave everything behind if I asked him to. Is that what you want? I asked. No, Ethan said, because then he wins. Then he gets to keep being the man who knows what is best for you. He kissed my forehead. We walk out of this together, he said, but you choose the direction. If you want to fight, we fight. If you want to run, we run. I rested my head against his chest. I listened to his heartbeat. It was steady. It was the only stability I had left. I want my life back. I whispered, and I can't have it back as long as he is holding the keys. Then we fight. Ethan said. My phone buzzed on the counter. We both jumped. I picked it up. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. Route 9 Diner. Booth in the back. Come alone. 4 p.m. There was no signature. I looked at the clock. It was 3:15. It is Darlene, I said. How do you know? Ethan asked. Because she is the only one who reached out before. I said, we will talk. That is what she texted me at the beach. Ethan looked at the text. Come alone. He read, I don't like that. I have to go. I said, I will drive you. He said, I will wait in the car. No. I said, if he has people watching, and we know he does, seeing your car might spook her. I will take an Uber. I will drop a pin so you can track my location. But I have to walk into that diner by myself. Ethan hesitated. He didn't like it. I could see the protective instinct warring with the logic. "Okay," he said finally, "but keep your phone in your hand. If you feel weird, even for a second, you leave. I promise." I said. The Route 9 diner was a chrome and neon relic from the 50s that smelled of grease and burnt coffee. It sat on a stretch of highway that was mostly used by truckers and commuters trying to avoid the interstate traffic. It was pouring rain when I arrived. The sky was the color of a bruise. I pushed open the door. A bell chimed. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and orthopedic shoes, nodded at me. "Sit anywhere, hun," she said. I scanned the room. It was mostly empty. A couple of truckers eating pie at the counter, a teenager doing homework in a corner, and in the very back booth, sitting with her back to the wall, was a woman in a beige raincoat. Aunt Darlene. I walked toward her. My heart was hammering against my ribs. She looked up as I approached. She looked 20 years older than the last time I had seen her, which was at Thanksgiving. Her face was gray and drawn. Her eyes were rimmed with red. She wasn't wearing makeup, which was shocking for Darlene Pike. A woman who usually wouldn't check the mail without lipstick. "Hi, Aunt Darlene," I said. She didn't smile. She gestured to the seat opposite her. "Sit down." "Zoe," she said. Her voice was scratchy, like she had been screaming into a pillow. I slid into the booth. The vinyl squeaked. She had a cup of tea in front of her. The tea bag was still in it, the water dark and bitter. "I am glad you came," she said. I didn't answer. I just waited. She looked out the window at the rain. I almost didn't send the text. She said, "I sat in my car for an hour trying to work up the courage." "Why?" I asked. "Because of him?" She flinched at the pronoun. "Because of what happens next," she said. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were full of a profound, exhausting sadness. "You think he is evil," she said. "I think he is a thief." I said, "And a liar. He is those things." She agreed, but he didn't start that way. He started as a man who was terrified of losing what he had. I don't care about his origin story. "Darlene," I said, "I care about why my family abandoned me at the altar. I care about why there is a surveillance firm tracking my license plate." Darlene took a sip of the bitter tea. "It isn't about protecting the money from you, Zoe," she said. "Elena says it is control." I said, "She says he wants to keep me dependent. That is part of it." Darlene said, "But that is the method. That isn't the reason." "Then what is the reason?" Darlene leaned across the table. She lowered her voice. "He doesn't have the money," she whispered. I stared at her. "What?" "The trust," she said. "The $4.5 million. It isn't sitting in a bank account waiting for you. It is gone." "Gone?" I felt the blood drain from my face. "He spent it?" "Not spent," Darlene said. "Leveraged." She looked around the diner to make sure no one was listening. "Your father's business has been underwater for a decade," she said. "The real estate deals, the development projects, they were all bad bets. He was drowning. So he used the trust. He used the assets as collateral to secure loans to keep the business afloat. He used my money to bail himself out." I said, "Yes," Darlene said, "but here is the catch. As long as the money stays in the trust, under his control, the banks are happy, the assets are technically there, serving as security. But if you claim the trust, if I trigger the clause," I said, "if I get married." "Exactly," Darlene said. "If the ownership transfers to you, the collateral vanishes, the banks call the loans, the business collapses, he goes bankrupt, and he probably goes to prison for fraud." I sat back, stunned. It wasn't just about control. It was about survival. He wasn't keeping me small just to be mean. He was keeping me small because my growth would destroy him. He needs me to be a child. I said, "Forever, because if I become an adult, his house of cards falls down." Darlene nodded. Tears were leaking out of her eyes now. "That is why he stopped the wedding," she said. "He couldn't let you trigger the transfer. He had to stop it at all costs." "And the family?" I asked. "Why did you all go along with it?" Why didn't anyone warn me? Darlene wiped her face with a paper napkin. Because he has a cabinet. She said, A cabinet? A filing cabinet. Darlene said, In his home office, the locked one. She took a shaky breath. He has been collecting things. Zoe, on all of us. For years. Since we were kids. Practically. Collecting what? Mistakes. She said, Evidence. She looked down at her hands. Your brother Caleb. He got into some trouble in college. Gambling trouble. He owed bad people a lot of money. Your dad paid it off. But he kept the records. He kept the threatening notes from the loan sharks. He kept the bank transfers. If that came out, Caleb would lose his job. He works in finance. He would be unhireable. I felt sick. And Maya? Maya had an abortion when she was 19. Darlene whispered, She didn't want anyone to know, especially not her religious in-laws. Your dad drove her to the clinic, and he kept the receipt. My God. I said, And your mother? Darlene said, She looked out the window again. Your mother had an affair. 10 years ago. It lasted 6 months. Graham found out. He didn't divorce her. He just documented it. He has the emails, the hotel bills. And you? I asked. Darlene closed her eyes. I borrowed money from the company accounts 5 years ago. She said, To pay for my husband's rehab. I paid it back. Zoe. Every cent. But technically it was embezzlement. Graham has the ledger. She opened her eyes. They were stark and terrified. He sat us down on Friday night, she said. The night before the wedding, he put the files on the dining room table, one for each of us, and he said, If anyone steps foot in that glass house tomorrow, I open these files, I send them to employers, I send them to spouses, I release them to the world. I stared at her. I tried to imagine the scene, my family, sitting around the dining room table where we used to eat pot roast, being held hostage by their own secrets. He is a monster. I said, He is desperate, Darlene said, and a desperate man is dangerous. She reached into her purse. Her hand was trembling. She pulled out a small object. It was a USB drive, a silver flash drive, scuffed and old. What is this? I asked. She slid it across the table. It sat between us like a grenade. This is from your grandfather, Darlene said. Grandpa Artie? He didn't trust Graham. Darlene said, Toward the end, Artie knew something was wrong. He knew Graham was taking risks. He knew Graham was jealous of the money he was leaving for you. She pointed to the drive. Artie gave this to me 3 days before he died. She said, He told me to keep it safe. He said, If Graham ever tries to screw that girl out of her future, you give her this. Why didn't you give it to me sooner? I asked. Because I was scared. Darlene said, Because I didn't want to blow up the family. Because I thought maybe Graham would fix it. I thought he would pay back the loans and let you have the money when you were older. She laughed. A bitter, broken sound. But he is never going to fix it, she said. He is just going to keep digging the hole deeper and throwing us all in to fill it. She stood up. She pulled her raincoat tight around her. There are letters on there, she said. Scans of the original account documents, and a directive Artie wrote in his own hand. It contradicts everything Graham filed with the court. She looked down at me. I am sorry. Zoe, she said, I am so sorry I didn't walk you down that aisle. I looked at the drive. What happens if I use this? I asked. Then the war starts, Darlene said, and he will come for us. He will release the files. He will burn us all down. She hesitated, but he is burning us down anyway, isn't he? She didn't wait for an answer. She turned and walked out of the diner, the bell chiming cheerfully behind her. I sat there for a long time. I watched the rain streak the window. I reached out and picked up the flash drive. It was cold metal. It was light. It weighed almost nothing, but it felt heavy. It felt like the weight of a gavel. I wrapped my fingers around it. I wasn't afraid of what I would find on the drive. I wasn't afraid of the truth about the money or the loans or the fraud. The terrifying part was that I was finally ready to look. I was finally ready to stop being the daughter who wanted to be loved and start being the woman who wanted justice. I put the drive in my pocket. I stood up. I left a $20 bill on the table for the tea. I walked out into the rain to call Ethan. I was ready to go home, and then I was ready to go to war. The flash drive sat on the conference table like a bullet casing. It was small, silver, and scratched, but it contained the ammunition that was about to destroy my father's life. Noah Sutter, the forensic accountant Elena had brought in, was a man who looked less like a financial detective and more like a high school geography teacher. He wore a corduroy jacket and thick glasses, and he hummed quietly while he worked. But when he looked up from his laptop, his eyes were hard. He projected the first image onto the wall of the conference room. It was a letter. The handwriting was jagged and hurried, written in blue ballpoint ink. I recognized it immediately. It was my grandfather's scrawl. I could almost smell the pipe tobacco he used to smoke. Elena read it out loud. To the trustee of the Clark estate, my son Graham has many virtues, but financial prudence is not one of them. He has a gambler's heart and a king's ego. I am structuring this trust to bypass him for a reason. I want Zoe to have direct access when she comes of age. Do not let him act as the gatekeeper. He will eat the grain before the harvest. I felt a lump form in my throat. Grandpa Artie had known. He had seen the man my father truly was. Even back then. Noah clicked to the next slide. This is the document your father filed with the probate court in 2010. Noah said, it looked official. It had the court stamps. It had the signatures. Now, look closely at the signature page, Noah said. He zoomed in. This is a digital alteration, Noah said. It is not even a good one. It is what we call a physical cut and paste. See the faint shadow line around your grandfather's signature? I squinted. There was a microscopic gray halo around the ink. He took a valid signature from another document, probably an old check or a letter, and he physically taped it onto this new page before photocopying it. Noah explained, it is mundane fraud. It is the kind of thing people got away with before high-resolution scanning became standard. It wasn't a sophisticated cybercrime. It was scissors and tape. It was pathetic. And here, Noah said, clicking again, this is the beneficiary designation. The document on the screen listed Graham Clark as the sole administrative trustee with full discretionary power. But on the drive Darlene gave you, Noah said, we found the original draft. He put them side by side. The original draft read, Graham Clark shall serve as advisor only. With no power to withhold distributions beyond the beneficiary's 25th birthday, he changed the rules. I said, he rewrote the will. Elena corrected. He forged a legal instrument to grant himself power he was never meant to have. And then he used that power to pledge the assets as collateral for his own loans. She turned on the lights. It is theft. Zoe, she said, plain and simple. He stole $4.5 million from a 17-year-old girl. I looked at the screen. I looked at the jagged handwriting of the grandfather who had tried to protect me. I want the meeting. I said, with Brightwell? Elena asked. With everyone. I said, I want to walk into that office, and I want to watch them squirm. We set the meeting for Friday morning at 10 o'clock. Elena called her contact at Brightwell Trust Services. She didn't mention the flash drive. She didn't mention the fraud. She just said that Ms. Clark was coming in to review her account status, and that we expected a full accounting of all transactions. The representative, a man named Mr. Henderson, had sounded nervous on the phone. We usually require more notice for a full audit, he had said. You have 24 hours, Elena had replied. That should be plenty of time to find the print button. Thursday night, I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, packing the last of the wedding gifts into boxes to return them. When my phone rang, it was a number I didn't know. I looked at Ethan. He paused the movie we were pretending to watch. Put it on speaker. He said, I tapped the green icon. Hello? Zoe. It was my father. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't the voice of the man who had threatened to ruin my sister. It was calm. It was warm. It was the voice that used to read me bedtime stories. Dad, I said, I have been trying to reach you. He said, I was worried. Worried? I asked. You are the reason I'm hiding in an apartment with a new deadbolt. Zoe, honey, he said, you are sounding hysterical. You need to take a breath. I am not hysterical. I said, I am informed. There was a pause, a silence that felt heavy and calculated. I know you are upset about the wedding, he said gently. I know it seemed harsh. But I had to do it. Zoe, that wedding, it wasn't safe. Safe? I repeated. What are you talking about? Ethan, he said. The name dripped with condescension. We found some things out. Zoe, my security team, they found some red flags. We were worried he was marrying you for the wrong reasons. We were worried he was after the family assets. I almost laughed. It was so absurd. You mean the assets you stole? I asked. The line went quiet. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. But listen to me. I stepped in to protect you. I took the heat. I let you hate me because that is what a father does. He absorbs the pain to keep his child safe. It was a masterful performance. He was rewriting reality in real time. He was turning his greed into martyrdom. I looked at Ethan. He was shaking his head, his eyes wide with disbelief. I have a question for you. Dad, I said. Go ahead, he said. Did you ever plan to let me be an adult? What kind of question is that? A simple one, I said. Did you ever plan to let me have my money? Did you ever plan to let me marry? Or was the plan to keep me a child forever so you could use my inheritance to pay your debts? Zoe, he warned. His voice dropped an octave. You are treading on dangerous ground. Answer the question. I said, I plan to keep you from making the mistake your mother made. He snapped. The mask slipped. Just for a second. What mistake? I asked. Being weak, he hissed. Being ungrateful. Thinking she could survive without me. He realized what he had said. He realized he had shown his teeth. We will talk about this later, he said, his voice smoothing out again like oil on water. When you are calm, when you are away from him. He hung up. I stared at the phone. The mistake your mother made. He didn't mean the affair. He meant the independence. He meant the audacity of having a self. I needed to see her. I texted my mother. Starbucks on Main. 20 minutes. If you aren't there, I come to the house with the police. It was a bluff. I wasn't going to bring the police to my mother's door. But she didn't know that. She lived in a world where threats were the primary language of communication. I sat at a corner table, watching the door. She walked in 10 minutes late. She was wearing big sunglasses and a scarf wrapped around her head, like a celebrity trying to avoid the paparazzi, or a woman trying to hide bruises. She saw me and hurried over. She didn't get coffee. She just sat down and gripped her purse like a shield. Zoe, she whispered, you shouldn't have contacted me. He checks the phone logs. I don't care. I said, I don't care what he checks. She looked at me. Her eyes were rimmed with red. She looked smaller than I remembered. Fragile, like if I poked her, she would turn to dust. Why, Mom? I asked. I didn't ask how. I knew how. I asked why. Why did you let him do it? Why did you let him steal from me? Why did you let him humiliate me? Linda Clark looked down at the table. She traced the wood grain with a manicured fingernail. I didn't have a choice, she said. You always have a choice, I said. You could have left. You could have told me. Left? She let out a dry, broken laugh. With what money? Zoe? He controls the accounts. He controls the house. He controls the cars. You could have gotten a job. I said, you have a degree. I haven't worked in 30 years, she said. And even if I did, you don't understand. It isn't just the money. Then what is it? It is the air, she said. She looked up at me, and her eyes were bleak. He controls the air in the house. Zoe, when he is happy. We can breathe. When he is angry, we suffocate. I spent 30 years trying to keep him happy so you kids could breathe. I thought I was buying you oxygen. You weren't buying us oxygen, I said. You were teaching us how to hold our breath. She flinched. I know, she whispered. I know. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. He is going to destroy you. Zoe, she said, if you fight him, he will burn everything down. He will release the files. He will ruin Ethan. He will ruin Darlene. He will ruin me. Let him. I said, Zoe, let him burn it. Mom, because I am not going to live in the ashes anymore. I pulled my hand away. I am going to Brightwell tomorrow. I said, I am going to take back what is mine. If you want to help me, you can come. You can stand next to me and tell the truth. She pulled back. Fear washed over her face. I can't, she whispered. I can't do that. I stood up. I know. I said, I know you can't. I walked out of the coffee shop. I didn't look back. I knew she would stay there until she stopped shaking, and then she would go home to the house where the air was thin, and she would wait for him to tell her what to do next. I had lost my mother a long time ago. I just hadn't realized it until today. The offices of Brightwell Trust Services were on the 42nd floor of a skyscraper in downtown Boston. The view was spectacular. You could see the harbor, the bridges, the tiny cars moving like ants. It was the kind of view that made you feel powerful. We walked in at 9:55. Me, Ethan, Elena, and Noah. The receptionist looked at us with alarm. We didn't look like typical clients. Ethan was wearing his work boots because he refused to dress up for thieves. I was wearing a blazer I used for job interviews. Elena looked like a predator. Mr. Henderson will see you now, the receptionist said. She led us down a long hallway lined with abstract art. She opened a heavy door. Mr. Henderson was standing behind his desk. He was a balding man in a suit that cost more than my car. He looked sweaty. Miss Clark, he said. Ms. Marwick, please, sit down. We didn't sit. We want the file, Elena said. The complete file, including the original directives from Arthur Clarke. Henderson cleared his throat. Well, that is a complicated request, he said. Some of those documents are archived. We need time to retrieve them. We know they are archived, Noah said. Stepping forward, he placed the flash drive on the desk. We have digital copies of the originals right here. We would like to compare them to your active file, specifically, the signature pages. Henderson stared at the flash drive. He went pale. I don't know what that is, he stammered. It is evidence, Elena said, of fraud. And if you are holding a fraudulent file, Mr. Henderson, that makes you an accessory. The door behind us opened. There is no need for threats, a voice said. We turned. Graham Clark walked in. He was wearing a charcoal suit. His hair was perfectly coiffed. He looked like a statesman. He looked like the father of the year. He walked past us and stood next to Henderson's desk. He put a hand on the man's shoulder, a gesture of ownership. Zoe, he said, smiling at me. I heard you were coming. I thought I would join the party. You weren't invited. I said, It is my trust. He said, I am the trustee. I have a right to be here. It is not your trust, Elena said. You are the trustee by forgery. Graham laughed. It was a rich baritone sound. Forgery, he said. That is a very big word. Elena, I hope you have big proof to back it up. He looked at me. Zoe, he said, let's stop this nonsense. Let's send these expensive lawyers away and talk. Father to daughter. No, I said. Honey, he said, his voice dropping to that reasonable, persuasive tone. I know you are hurt. I know you are confused. But you are about to make a terrible mistake. You are about to blow up the family business. The business you built with my money. I said, the business that pays for your mother's house, he countered. The business that paid for your college. The business that keeps this family afloat. He took a step toward me. If you trigger this transfer, he said, the loans get called. The company goes under. Your mother loses her home. Your brother loses his job. Is that what you want? Do you want to be the reason your mother is homeless? It was the ultimate guilt trip. He was holding my mother hostage. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw the lines of tension around his eyes. I saw the slight tremor in his hand. He wasn't powerful. He was terrified. It isn't my fault. I said, what? If the company goes under, it isn't my fault. I said, you did this. You took the loans. You committed the fraud. You built the house on sand. Dad, don't blame the wind when it falls down. His eyes narrowed. The charm evaporated. You ungrateful little brat, he hissed. Elena stepped in front of me. Step back. Mr. Clark, she said. He ignored her. He glared at me over her shoulder. I gave you everything, he shouted. I gave you a life of privilege. And this is how you repay me? By bringing in these vultures to pick my bones? You gave me nothing, I shouted back. You gave me silence. You gave me conditions. You gave me a life where I had to beg for your approval. I felt Ethan's hand on my back, steadying me. I am done begging. I said, I turned to Henderson. I want to execute the transfer. I said. Henderson looked at Graham. Graham's face was purple with rage. You can't, Graham said. The stability clause. I invoke the stability clause. She is unstable. Look at her. She is emotional. She is acting under the influence of a hostile third party. He pointed at Ethan. He is manipulating her, Graham shouted. He is a gold digger. Henderson looked at the paperwork. He looked at Elena. Mr. Clark, Henderson said, his voice shaking. If the beneficiary is married, the clause is triggered. The stability condition is, it is subject to review. But there is no review, Elena said. She slammed a document onto the desk. This is a sworn affidavit from Arthur Clark's attorney, dated 2009, she said. It states explicitly that the stability clause was never intended to be a veto, and combined with the evidence of forgery on the trustee designation, she leaned in. If you deny this transfer, Mr. Henderson, we will file a criminal complaint against Brightwell and against you personally for aiding and abetting grand larceny. We will bring in the FBI, and we will give them this flash drive. Henderson swallowed hard. He looked at Graham. He looked at the flash drive. He looked at his own future. He made a choice. I need a signature. Henderson whispered. He slid a form across the desk toward me. Revocation of trustee authority and request for immediate transfer. Graham lunged. Don't you do it! He screamed. Zoe, you will ruin everything. I will release the files. I will tell everyone about Maya. I will tell everyone about your mother. I picked up the pen. I looked at him one last time. Go ahead, I said. Tell them. Zoe, tell them, I said, because the truth is better than this. The truth is better than being your prisoner. I looked at the paper. I thought about the wedding, the empty chairs, the silence, the note. Don't let them turn this into a show. I signed my name, Zoe Mercer. I used my married name. It felt like driving a stake into the heart of the past. I pushed the paper back to Henderson. Freeze the accounts, I said, pending a full forensic audit, and I want a copy of every transaction sent to my attorney. Henderson took the paper. He stamped it. Received. It is done, he said. Graham stood there. He looked like he had been shot. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The bluster was gone. The power was gone. He was just a man in a suit who owed a lot of money to a lot of banks, and his collateral had just walked out the door. Elena turned to Graham. We will be in touch regarding the civil suit, she said, and the criminal referral. I suggest you get a lawyer, a good one. We turned to leave. Graham spoke. His voice was a whisper. You are dead to me, he said. I stopped at the door. I didn't turn around. I know, I said. I was dead to you the moment I stood up. We walked out of the building and into the sunlight. The air in Boston smelled of exhaust and salt water. It smelled beautiful. I took a deep breath. My lungs expanded fully for the first time in 33 years. Is it over? Ethan asked. No, I said. It is just starting. The lawsuits, the bankruptcy, the fallout with the family. It is going to be messy. He took my hand. But I am free, I said. I looked at him. I am poor. I said, the lawyers will take a chunk. The banks might take the rest. I might end up with nothing. Ethan smiled. He kissed my knuckles. You have me, he said. You have a new lock on your door. And you have the truth. That isn't nothing. We walked toward the subway. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I opened the contacts. Dad, Mom, Caleb, Maya. I selected them all. Block contact, block contact, block contact. I put the phone away. I am ready. I said, ready for what? To go home. I said, to the life I chose. And for the first time, I knew exactly what was best for me. Thank you for listening to this story. It was a journey into the dark heart of family secrets. And I hope it resonated with you. If you are listening to this, I would love to know where you are in the world. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you in London, New York, Sydney, or maybe somewhere quiet, listening to the rain like Zoe? Please subscribe to the Revenge Stories channel for more tales of justice, betrayal, and the long road to freedom. And share your thoughts in English in the comments. What would you have done in Zoe's place? Would you have signed the paper? Until next time, keep your eyes open and trust your instincts.